Okay, so we'll dive right in. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'm really excited to have you. And my first question is just what do you want listeners to know about you, Jason?
Well, for those which run into the millions of people that don't know who I am in this world, um, I suppose what, sorry, rephrase that question. Sorry, start again and rephrase the question. Because
Yeah, yeah.
what do they want to know about me? What do you mean? Or like, who are you? What's your background? So yeah, kick off again and let's do
Yeah,
that.
okay. All right. I love this. So I guess I have two questions. I know your story, and I want listeners to know your story because it moves me every time, and I've heard it so many times. So that's one thing. And then the other question is like, what do you want people to know about you?
Oh,
So there's what I want people to know about you, and there's what you want people to know about you. And I want you to answer both those.
okay, yeah. Well, my upbringing, I suppose we could start a condensed version, but it's very,
Yeah.
very difficult. So, where do I start? One parent family, grew up in a part of London called Peckham, southeast London. At the time of growing up, I suppose the closest thing that it was akin to is the Bronx in New York. To put it in perspective, Peckham Rye Park. In one of the years that I was a very young person, maybe at the age of 11 or 12, Peckham Rye Park had more murders and stabbings than New York Park than Central Park in New York. Now at the time they had horrific incidents as well. To give you an idea, I mean, I was silly things, but I was mugged at knife point 14 times growing up. I mean, it was a rough upbringing. It's only me and my mum. There was no brothers, no sisters, no father. In fact, my mom is or was, unfortunately she's passed, but she was my brother, my sister, she was my father, she was just condensed everything. She was also my best friend on earth. So she was my ultimate mentor. And she, as you can imagine, money was a massive issue, but love wasn't, which I wouldn't trade the two for all the money in the world. Because they say it's a cliche, but there's no. So I don't consider myself as having a bad childhood. But in amongst all of that, so I left school at 15. To cut a long story short, my mom had this cyst the size of an orange on one of the ovaries. She went into King's College Hospital in London, and they unfortunately had a bad day at the office, which is all that happened. They didn't clearly do it deliberately, but they took out the wrong ovary. So that meant that she was now in bed. Now, of course, there was no one else to look after her. I mean, no one else. I mean, it was her sister that put us on the street. We lived on the streets as well. Anyway, when I was about 7, long involved story, but literally, genuinely, not a made up story. We was on the streets. My mum was trying to find a house for us. And anyway, long involved story that I had to leave school at 15 in order to take care of my mum. So I ended up, so therefore there was not only no upper education, there was no finished education. I didn't sit one exam in my entire life, not one. I didn't. I think I did drama. I think that was the only thing that I did. So I looked after my mum for a couple of years, and she was the one that really dived into health. And we saw that the cyst that was still there, obviously on the other ovary, went away within, I don't know, about a year or year and a half. And all she did was implement fruits and vegetables and some other natural remedies like herbs and stuff that she read a book called Back to Eden. So I was astonished by this, considering everything else. But I didn't do anything health wise even at that stage. I was 16, 17 at this point. I found everything. I mean, I lived on North Peckham Estate, not even just Peckham, but North Peckham Estate, and and we lived in a squat. And so we would. My day was this. I mean, to cut you, I would wake up at 4 p.m. That's hard to imagine, but wake up at 4 p.m. because we've been getting stoned and getting drunk and playing computer games all night long. So all we had was so at 4 p.m. we'd all wake up completely hungover on every level. And then our only mission was, right, where do we find some money in order to go to the off license to go and buy some more beer? When I say beer, I mean, there's products called Special Brew and Tenant Super. I don't know if there was anywhere else other than the UK. These things you could set fire to them. We were basically trying to get more alcohol for less money. That was the idea. Plus, then we was going to try and score some gear, so we would go on the estate, try to avoid getting mugged, but very hard because we were trying to get some gear. So we'd get some hash, but then we moved on from hash and went on to skunk. I haven't told my story for a long time, so this is like I'm just realizing how crazy this must sound. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah, but I have to say this is really cool because I've heard your story many times and there's details in here that are new for me. There's things I
right.
haven't heard.
Yeah, well, there's things I wouldn't say in a seminar, hopefully. So yeah, but then then we would smoke skunk, but then And then unfortunately, all of my friends genuinely went on to heroin. I mean, it's a relatively pure drug, heroin, contrary to what people believe. And it kills very few people per year because of the purity of the drug itself. It's horrific, but very few go from chasing the dragon. You didn't think this is a podcast on leadership and I'm teaching how to take heroin. Brilliant. But this is from chasing I never did it. Luckily, my mentor, my mother, because of a story she told me, I never did that. I did other stuff. I sniffed stuff. I did all, but I never did the heroin thing. But my friends did, and unfortunately, my brother from another mother, because it's very rare to go from chasing the dragon to injecting, because the fear of needles and fear of injecting normally overrides even the immunity and tolerance that somebody's built up to that drug, even though it can be quite severe. And two of my friends went beyond the chasing the dragon and went into injecting. And Phil, who looked like Elvis, so it's not relevant, but he was so beautiful, just beautiful. And he, unfortunately, I think he was 17, maybe 18, and he died. He was my brother from another mother, and he just died. He died like Elvis, weirdly looking like him. He was found in a toilet, slumped over with heroin nearby, but he also had 4 cans of special brew, but it would never have gone down as an alcohol death, interestingly. Alcohol was never mentioned. He made the front page of the local paper as well. You don't want to make that front page, that's for sure. So there was a lot of, obviously there was a lot of drugs going around, a lot of this. So inevitably I got involved in that. There's no other mentor. I mean, you become who you hang around with. Number one, I mean, everybody said this for years. I didn't know this until years later. But you're a complete commodity of your surroundings, and especially those that influence you. And you think I thought my mother was my biggest influence, but of course there comes a tipping point, where that no longer is the case for a short period of time, where your influence is the people you're looking up to. Whether it's John Travolta on the big screen at the time, which is why I started smoking cigarettes, because I had a leather jacket and then I needed a cigarette, or whether it's the people that you're hanging around with, and it's cool to take, not cocaine, or it's cool to take speed or have hash, and it's cool not to work, and it's cool to sign on the dole. Well, it's not cool. You just couldn't find any jobs. You actually couldn't. I say that now. I look back now, I think, yeah, you could have always found a job. And I did work hard. I mean, I worked as a Saturday boy from the age of 12. And it was only when, unfortunately, I think looking after my mom for 2 years, leaving school, finding those people, I found that mindset at the same time of, oh, there's no opportunities out there. Now, despite the fact I'd worked my socks off till I was 17, even then, trying to support my mom, but the mindset came in, drank a lot, this, that. Anyway, so inevitably, illness started to occur. What happens? If you start eating no fruits and vegetables, you don't move your body, and all you have is kind of drugs, especially skunk, and you get the munchies and everything else, and you eat junk. Well, I became significantly overweight. I mean, very overweight, in fact. I had much bigger breasts than my mum, so that's never a good look for a guy. But I was very overweight, and I was also a heavy smoker. I would smoke 40, 60 cigarettes a day. I was a heavy drinker, as I've already mentioned, but I would consume something in the region of 12 to 14 pints of lager a day. That's without Southern Comfort as a chaser and stuff like that. There was no opportunities, like I said, no money. I would puff, and then I developed a skin disease called psoriasis. I was covered in it. 95% coverage. I had severe asthma. I was taking the asthma pump 14, 16 times a day. I had my cigarettes in one pocket, asthma pump in the other pocket, because they went hand in hand. Severe hay fever. Yeah, all of those things. And that's the background really of all of those things accumulating. It's a twofold question. That's kind of like it's a very limited background. I mean, God, we even emigrated to Africa, me and my mom. We had to live in a mud hut. There's so many stories, it's ridiculous. But you come out the other side. It wasn't an epiphany. It was just a case of, right, I need to look for new mentors. I don't know if I knew it consciously, but I knew I didn't. It sounds awful, and it's not a downtrodden on anybody who happens to find themselves on these estates or anything else. There for the grace of God go I. But I didn't belong. And it's not a slag off to any. It's just, I'm sure many people in that environment, there was something that I thought, this isn't me. I don't know. This isn't who I want to be. This isn't the life. But there was no leaders. And then, like many people back then, I saw an infomercial on the television. And it was one of these things, because we were just puffing, and these late night commercials came on. And on one of them, there was Tony Robbins. And he goes, "Hi, I'm Anthony Robbins. I've helped God knows how many people over the years. I'm like a megastar." And I'm like, "Who is this guy? I don't even know who this guy is." So they said, "You can get my tape course." Right, anyway, whatever. So we figured, we was always ducking and diving. His tape course was £110. We didn't have anywhere near, like, I didn't have, it's like, how much have you got in your bank account? There was no bank account. There was no money. It's like people say, "Oh, there was more month left at the end of the money." there was a whole month left at the end of the money, right? It was ridiculous. And there was nowhere to get it. There's no family member had money. No, you always reached for, nobody had it. So I looked, and there was something about this guy that resonated. He was a bit too American for me, but that's how it was in my head. And he was a bit too, that rah rah. And I just thought, but that's something he's saying. I don't know what it is. And I said to my guys, "We'll chip in. Why don't we get this as a 30-day money back guarantee? We get money back in 30 days. I said, and why don't we just record the tape? So we have tape to tape, buy some blank cassettes, and we can all get it, because we just pirate his, it's an awful thing, really, but we just, that's what we do. So I bought the thing, got it back, tried to get the money from my friends, and they never got it. I thought, you guys, man, they never gave me the money. And I tell you what, it was a monumental change in my life when already on day four, now it's consistent. He talks on day one. This is personal power one. This is what, 30 years ago? I don't know. It's a long time ago, 25, 30 years ago. And he says, this tape course, it's a 30-day course. It's not a 5-day course, 30. In other words, if you're going to do something, you commit to it. And it's 30 days. And he just, this time factor of, if you can't do this, what can you do? And I'm like, freaking don't challenge me, I'll do it. So I was on day 4, and I already knew on day 4, I was never in a million years going to send them back and ask my money back. Because the value that I already had, it would have made me feel wrong. Even at that point, even though we couldn't afford it, I just thought, this person is offering so much value. Now, of course, he got a lot of that value from Jim Rohn, and you go on down the line. We're all a product of various other people, but we bring our own tune. And I resonated with his tune. Not everybody does, but I did. And we need to find somebody that we resonate their tune. That's all it is. And then over the years, and I've got to know Tony and this, that, and the other. And it's weird over the years to find myself years later being invited by him to come to Palm Springs to go to lunch at his event and be in his, same group one of his family and this, that. And it was just crazy. And it was just like, that's kind of insane. Now I don't know him that well. And I followed him on stage years later. There was the XL, I think it was 5,000 people. And I just thought, this is nuts. And it was the best hour of my life. I got 5,000 people doing Grease Lightning, and we just had a great time and all this kind of stuff. So that's kind of like where it was to where, but it took me a long time. Like, it's a really weird thing with Tony, not with Tony, he's not responsible for anything, with Tony's teachings, essentially, which could be argued there are several people's teaching in one. But I never stopped smoking, stopped drinking. At the end of the 30 days, I didn't do any of that. He didn't help, like it was his responsibility again. Like, for whatever reason, I didn't stop drinking, I didn't stop smoking, any of that stuff. I didn't stop eating crap within 30 days, none of that. But I got out of Peckham. What he did was give me this mindset to go, right, now of course I cut down on drink this time. You can't drink 14 pints of lager a day and be successful. You can't do it. It's not going to happen in your world. And then it's funny, years later I wrote a book on alcohol, really weird, and the biggest growth spurt, without doubt, business-wise, that I had is when I was completely teetotal. I mean, I didn't drink for, I think, 16 years or whatever it was. I mean, there was no period in my 30s. In my 30s, I didn't touch a drop of drink at all. And I very rarely have drink now, but I mean, here and there.
So I just want to pause you there, because I want to ask you, how old were you when you saw that infomercial?
Listen, I think I was 20, I want to say I was 23. I think I was 23. I'm 53 now. I think it was 30 years ago.
So I just have to say, because we've never talked about this, because all the times that we've talked about this is really cool. I'm getting all these like bits and pieces that are new. But he was my first self-help book that I read. I was 14. I read his first book when I was 14 or 15, Unlimited Power. Yeah. I don't think I read it entirely, but I was already drawn. Yeah, it was a little bit too much for me as a high school student and a cheerleader and whatever. But I had it. I bought it. I read parts of it, and it was the beginning of what was later to be something that I would get involved in career-wise. So this is interesting because you've never told me that Tony Robbins was an influence for you. This is the
No,
first time
because
I've
where
heard
would
it.
it come? Well, where would it come up?
Well, right, exactly. So let's go to the like next chapter. So then what happened? You got out of there. Then what happened?
Well, no, I had the mindset to get out of Peckham. So the point was, is that I think I mentally left Peckham before I physically left Peckham.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things. I had to find a way to get a council house of my own, which unless you had certain things wrong with you or whatever, you couldn't do it. So I'm always looking life as a board game. So, and I'm always thinking there's always another way. In fact, my biggest thing that I've got in my head, which hasn't been taught by anybody by me other than my mum, right? So my mum was just like, there's always another way, no matter what. It doesn't matter whether and there's always an easy way and there's always a simpler way. So don't overcomplicate issues. And again, it goes back to that. Well, I think it was a made-up story, but it's been used by many people and many speakers over the world. But I think there's some element of truth to it, even in terms of. I just love the analogy. NASA, it's an old one, but NASA apparently spent $100,000 developing a zero gravity pen. There are such things as zero gravity pens. I don't know how wrong the story is, but I love the story, real or no real, because it's actually kind of illustrates so much. $100,000 creating a zero gravity pen. They then go up to space, and the Russian cosmonauts. The story goes the Russian cosmonauts met up with them, and at some point they were showing off their zero gravity pen, and the Russians went, "Well, we brought a pencil." And it does the same thing. Now, it's been overused, that analogy, but the point is you can overcomplicate
Right.
everything. So I thought, well, how am I going to get out of here? How much? Because we had no money. It's easy. Look, you can get out of anywhere if you've got money, right? Or contacts. I had none. There was no social media. There was no LinkedIn. There was no anything. You couldn't schmooze anybody. You couldn't do anything, right? That's the end of the story. So it's like, well, how do we get out of here? So it's like, and I wanted a better life for my mum. My mum just unfortunately, got just beaten up by people, physically as well. I mean, I didn't have a dad, but she would obviously look for a husband, a boyfriend, whatever you want to call him, but somebody to hang out with and stuff. And there were some horrific people that she had. Ken was probably the worst. Ken was what I now call a dementor because of Harry Potter. But there are several people that will come into your life and their sole purpose is to suck the joy from life, but some go further. And Ken went further. So to give you an example, genuine story, I'm about, at this point, how old am I when Ken? I'm about 11 at this point. And my mum would go to work and Ken would be around and I'd come back from school. My mum was still trying to work late. He would pick me up by my skin, punch me in the face. He would slap me around. When my mum tried to get rid of him, he'd slit his wrist and cover us both in blood. The police would come, but back then, of course, the challenge back then, of course, nobody believed domestic violence. It was a very misogynist police force even back then. It was awful. And so the police would come and say, well, unless we physically see him doing it. What stupid rule is that? Unless we physically see him doing it. And then he tried to run her over in the middle of the street, people screaming. I was screaming as a young kid. He held her prisoner psychologically,
Yeah.
which is worse than physically because people think you're stupid for not just getting out. So that was kind of awful. I know I'm going off on tangents here, so there's no other mentor. There was still fundamentally me and my mum, and I had Tony Robbins' voice and my mum's voice. It's like, well, how do we get out? And then somebody said to me, look, they've read a book. Am I smoking? I hate smoking. And they said, look, I've read this book on stopping smoking. And I said, a book? And they went, yeah. Now, back then, it was hard to think a book could stop you smoking. Now, people can understand it. But back then, it seemed like ludicrous. And they said, I read this book. I read it in like 2 hours, and I don't smoke anymore. And it was one of my friends. And I went, don't be so stupid. Right? And I said, well, how long have you stopped for? He went, it doesn't matter. Well, of course it does. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Once you get set free from a prison, you're free. And I thought, I don't know what you're talking. No, you've got to wait 3 months before you're free because of the nonsense we hear. And he said, why don't you read it? I said, because I haven't read anything. I don't read. I said, I can't read. I said, I'm hugely dyslexic. Everything I write is backwards. I said, I can't read a book because I get a headache. And they said, yeah, but if you read this, you might. I said, even if it takes you 5 days to read the whole thing. So I read this book, and it was a guy called Alan Carr, A-L-L-E-N, Alan Carr. He's passed away now, and it was The Easy Way to Stop Smoking. And I read this book, and I went, and I put the book down, and I couldn't figure it out, right? 2 days later, I'm not smoking. 3 days later, I'm not smoking. And I'm saying to them, they said, do you want a cigarette? I went, no, no, good. I wasn't avoiding smoking. I wasn't doing anything. I went, what is this trickery going on? But of course, all he had done is explain the true nature of what is a wonderful confidence trick, which is what addiction is. So I went into the fascination of addiction, like the people, because he simplified it to the point of, it went beyond Robin. Robbins was a kind of almost aversion therapy, a bit like NLP and this, that, and the other. When actually this goes way beyond. This is so simple, it's a joke. The premise is you're not giving anything up, you're getting rid of something. That's the premise of it. But you need to, first of all, understand that there's genuinely nothing to give up. So he goes through and breaks down why there isn't. And so it's got to the end of it. Anyway, 8 months later, and I'm telling everybody stop smoking. And the weird thing happened was 8 months later, I picked up a joint at a party. And then 2 months later, I was smoking cigarettes again. And even I'm so convinced by this methodology that even when I'm smoking, I'm telling people, you should read this book, because I'm so convinced. And it took me, and then I reread the book. But of course, it's a bit like the film The Sixth Sense. And if any listener at the moment hasn't seen The Sixth Sense, I don't want to spoil it for you, but he was dead all the way through. But just you should have watched it already. I don't know what you did. But most people have seen The Sixth Sense twice, weirdly, right? So you watch it the first time and it's a revelation. Second time you watch it, there's no way you can get the same impact. It's impossible. You get different things from it. Right. You can't get the same impact twice. It's an impossibility. And so I tried to reread the book going, well, I already know that. I already know it, as if something new is going to be in the book. And then it took me a long time afterwards. But then eventually I realized, actually, I needed to do something too. I was expecting Alan to stop me smoking, which was ridiculous, because I thought he had done that. But actually, I stopped me smoking by just understanding the concept. And it's like, anyway, cut a long story short, I eventually kicked smoking. Then I wanted to make it my mission. So I thought, how am I going to get? So in the end, I got hold of the Alan Carr organization. And I said, I am gonna be your best therapist. Now I'm 24 at the time, right? And they said, well, Robin Haley, who's Oxbridge. So he went, he's very posh, he's so posh. And he goes, who are you? And I was just, and he was very rude as well, really rude. And he was kind of running the Alan Carr organization. But it wasn't an organization. It was Alan and Robin, really. It's like, that's how it was. And it was just, anyway, so I went for an interview and he said, yes, well, I can offer you the franchise in Birmingham. Now, Birmingham, right, is like 100 miles away from London, but 1,000,000 miles away from London. Anything outside the M25 is 1,000,000 miles away from London. And I've only ever known London, Southeast London, Duck Dive. And my mum did, and I said, Mum, look, if I get this opportunity, I can go to Birmingham, which I was so scared. Didn't know anybody up there, didn't know the cult, didn't know anything. But I had to get it first, the franchise. And they give me a script. It was a 5-hour script, by the way. Now that's me talking to somebody for 5 hours. That's like learning Gone with the Wind, Everybody's Part. How am I going to learn this thing? By the way, I'm painting and decorating. I'm also at the same time working down a tyre shop in Brixton, and I'm working in a bar in the Seven Dials at Covent Garden. I had 3 jobs. So when am I going to find the time to learn this stuff to get me out of Peckham? Because while people say, oh, it's easy, all you got to do is this. If you just applied yourself. Yeah, but you're not working 3 jobs, are you? It's fine when you're on TikTok and your father's taking care of everything with your money. But if you've got to work 3 jobs, then where are you going to find the time or the energy? So I thought 4 a.m. It's the only time I got nothing else. So it was like 4 a.m. So 4 till 7 a.m. was all my learning time. And I thought, because Robin went, oh, yes, you can have the frank. He said, it's £5,000. I went, oh, okay, fine. I thought, where am I going to get $5,000 from? Anyway, I did some market. I went down the markets. I did some markets. I tried to buy and sell stuff. And eventually I saved. Got the fight, kept putting him off. Got like £500. So I've got it. I'll pay you next week. Meanwhile, I was learning. And then I think I've told anybody this story, to be fair. But anyway, and then I was learning. And then I used to go to Brockwell Lido and then learn at four and then go swimming and then go and do my jobs. Anyway, in the end, my mom was great. I had a delivery job as well. So all the way delivering around London, my mom was with me and we would learn the script. Meanwhile, she's smoking, right? So it's crazy because she was a big smoker. And then, anyway, to cut a long story short, I eventually moved to Birmingham. And on December the 12th, 1995, was my first ever stop smoking session with my ex-wife. I hate calling her ex-wife. That sounds derogatory. Ellie, one of the most wonderful human beings on planet Earth. I had the privilege of spending 13 years of my life with. It's horrible. It has such a cliche when you say something like that, but she's a wonderful woman. Anyway, but we're still friends to this day. She's a lovely woman. Anyway, so she was one of, because she was still smoking a year after I'd stopped. And my mom was still, and then my cousin, who was like my sister, So they were all smoking, and everybody said, don't do it to people you know. They have no respect. They know your background, this, that, and the other. So I went, well, that's the time to do it. If I'm going to go in the deep end, let's go. So I went in. That was my first ever session. I was so nervous. And I've gone and I've done the whole script. My mom's heard the script for a whole year. You got to bear that in mind. She put out a cigarette and she never smoked for, I think it was 8 years till her husband died, which was such a shame. But my ex-wife stopped smoking, and so did my cousin. 100% success rate. And then I started the clinic, and then I lived in Birmingham. And then from that, I thought, hang on, we're missing a trick here. A similar methodology, but it needs to be thought about properly, can be used for alcohol. A similar methodology can be used for weight loss, in particular, because you can stop smoking, you can stop drinking, but you can't stop food. So what can we do? Can we change the brand of food? My brain went crazy. And I just went, there's a way to do it. And I said to my mom, I'm writing a book. And she went, what? And she was my biggest supporter, but she went, don't be so silly. You know, she was already proud that I was already doing this therapy stuff, but she just went, really? You're writing a book? Are you crazy? And I said, yeah. I said, I don't care if one person reads it and it helps them. And I meant it. I genuinely did. There was no social media. There was no that you couldn't promote yourself. I didn't know how I was going to do it. And then I wrote Slim for Life. I just wrote this book called Slim for Life. I'd already left Alan Carr at the time. Me and him fell out. We made up 6 months before he died. So there's no reason to go into why we fell out. It's irrelevant now. Doesn't matter. As you realise as you get older, most things aren't. We wish we'd kissed and made up before. It's ridiculous. Most things you think are big aren't, and stuff. It's nonsense. Anyway, so but I ended up at 30. So after the Alan Carr thing, and I bought this franchise, and I was doing well, everything else. Because of this falling out, I ended up with nothing again. So I'm 30 years of age. I now have no money again. I have no career anymore. They removed the franchise from me. All of this kind of stuff, and I didn't have the money to sue them, right? Because you can't. It's like playing, brag with a frigging billionaire or whatever. So I couldn't. So I was just like, okay. So I got destroyed there, and then I thought, well, what am I going to do? So again, I started painting, decorating. Now I'm back 30. Now I'm back in Peckham. Genuinely back in Peckham. Left Birmingham again, back in Peckham, painting, decorating. Listen, at 30, look, it's hard to look. I know it's cliched that there are certain roles, but there are, and I don't care what people say. Yes, there are masculine and feminine traits, and there are some people with masculine traits and some people with feminine traits. Absolutely, we've all got both. But there is a primary. This is why stereotypes are stereotypes. This is why they're called stereotypes. Men, on the whole, do want to protect. It's built within them, right? It's built back there. Men do want to, it's not the money so much they want. It's that it gives them the ability to protect their mother or protect this or to do something. So I'm sure being at any gender when you're 30, especially back then, it's devastating. For me, being a guy at 30 and having everything ripped and your confidence is down there, and I went to depression for 6 months. I mean, proper depression. Like, it was the only time I would say I was depressed and genuinely what they call suicide. I didn't see the point. I genuinely didn't see the point. I went, what is the point of all that? And if it wasn't for my mom just being around, because it would have crucified her, I was like, well, what's the point in any of this? What's the point of the game of life? And then about 6 months later, I just started to lift a bit, and I was still working and everything else. And I thought, I'm going to write a book. Because I got this passion for nutrition. Because even though I was depressed, I never ate badly. I didn't pick up smoking again, nor drinking. Because that just would have made it worse. I went, I'm depressed enough as it is. Why the hell do I need a drink? That's a depressant. This is crazy. So then I started writing Slim for Life, which is now quite an infamous book, but Freedom from the Diet Trap. And I wrote a big book like this. And I'm like, okay, I need to give it to a publisher. And this was the thing that changed my life entirely. This was the one of all the things. So all of it's a stepping stone. And I realized I'm just monopolizing this.
That's okay. I like it. I like it. Keep going.
However, so I've got the manuscript, and anyway, so we're in Peckham, obviously, and back in the council. But anyway, so I've taken the book to my mom, and she's starting to read it. She goes, "Oh, that's nice," but she still thinks, and she went, oh, "That's good." But my mom would say anything's good that I did,
Right.
I made her once this apple out of clay in a pottery class. It's the worst thing on earth, right? But to her, it was the most precious thing on earth, and she kept it till the day she died. And it's one of those. So she would say anything's good. So I knew I needed somebody else to tell me, right?
Yeah.
So I went to, and mom said, "Look, I've got a friend of a friend who knows somebody in publishing," because we didn't know a lot. In fact, if you don't know a lot of people in publishing. Anyway, so this woman came around. I switched. Imagine this. I've spent a year and a half writing this book while doing 2 jobs at that point, not 3, 2 jobs at that point. I then opened, and that's painting and decorating down the market. And then she opened the book, starts reading it, and she went, this is not good. Now, can you imagine? This is I thought she was joking. And I went, oh, that's funny. She went, no, this is really bad. And I said, what makes it bad? She went, do you know you've got like 18 exclamation marks on the opening page? So I said, and I'm making a point.
That's how you talk.
Yeah. And then she said, yeah, but if by making too many points, it means you're not making any point. And I went, I have no idea what you're talking about. So, and she goes, it sounds like you're speaking. I went, and? She goes, well, you should write the way people write. I said, I'm not a writer. I'm not an author. I said, nor do I want to be. I said, I've just got this passion to put this information in a book to help people. That's it. I said, I'm not trying to win a Pulitzer Prize or anything, right? That's it. So she went, so she goes, okay. She goes, well, who are you thinking of sending it to? I said, I'm going to send it straight to Thorson's, which is an arm of HarperCollins, right? I said, they're the health arm, sent straight there. She goes, what are you sending? I said, the thing, I'm sending the manuscript. She goes, no. She goes, I've got to help you out. She goes, nobody sends a manuscript. I said, okay. I said, well, what do they send? She goes, they send 3 chapters at best and a synopsis. I said, okay, how long have they been doing that? She goes, years, because they didn't have time to read manuscripts, and they just put them in the bin. So I said, well, they've been doing it for a long time. They went, yeah. She went, yeah. I said, so who sends the whole manuscript now? She goes, nobody. I said, it's okay, so I could stand out. I said, so if nobody's doing it, then if I do it, then it'll be something a little bit different. She goes, oh no. She goes, look, you've got to do it through, she goes, you've got to do it through an agent. So I said, okay, like a book agent. She went, yeah. I said, okay, do you know any book agents? She goes, yes, but none that would take you on. So I'm like, so hit me when I'm down. So I'm just like, okay, well, I'd send it. Anyway, so I went to this fair show, book fair show, and I saw Thorson's, and I went like that, and I looked at some people, and there was a woman there called Wanda White, and I clocked the name, went like that. And then so I was with my mum on a Wednesday afternoon in Peckham, putting it through the post office box. It was 12 noon on a Wednesday, and I'm posting this thing. This would have been in the year 2000, 2001? No, 2001, early doors. And I'm just posting this book through the letterbox, through the post box. And I said to my mum, I've either just sent a load of paper with bits of ink on it. I said that will amount to nothing, or depending on how that ink has been placed, will determine whether our lives improve and other people's. I said, that's the defining life. I had this little bit of paper. I thought, that's mad. Depending on how ink's been put on a piece of paper, that's all it is, and whether it resonates. Anyway, so I'm going, the following day, I sent the whole manuscript to Wanda Whiteley. The following day, I'm going for a rollerblade, and I've got my rollerblades with me. The phone starts ringing, and I can't leave the phone ringing because there's no mobile phone, so I had to go upstairs to get the phone. So I go upstairs and gets the phone, and then she goes, honestly, she goes, hello, is that Jason? I went, yeah, who's that? She goes, it's Wanda Whiteley from HarperCollins. I went, oh my, I said, listen, please, I beg of you. I said, please read the book. I said, ignore some punctuations, ignore this. I said, the essence of the book. I said, please read it. I said, I spent 1.5 years writing it. It's different to every other health book you can ever imagine. It's addiction-based. It's nothing to do with, she went, shut up. She said, she goes, by the way, just so you know, we're in a room, there's 20 of us, and you're on speakerphone. I swear this happened. And I went, wow. And I said, okay, what's going on? I said, but you can't have read the book. She goes, I read the first 4 chapters. She said, and I've called everybody in, and I'm calling you immediately. And I said,
it's making me feel very emotional.
me, honestly, just a little bit there. I've told the story for years. And she said, because ultimately it changed everything. And she says, the best thing I've read on this subject in 25 years. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't even emotional. I was just like, I didn't know what happened. So because I'm so used to ducking and diving, because I'm a market guy, I just like, and I had no one batting for me. I went, well, Random House are interested. And of course they're not. I haven't sent it to anybody else.
Oh my God.
Random House are interested. She went, listen, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, well, I have nothing on. And I said, I'm doing some work. She goes, what do you do? She goes, can you come into HarperCollins? And she said, can you come in and sign a contract? And can we get you? Is there anything we can do to persuade you to come with us?
Oh.
And I don't know if anybody's had this feeling, and you can't. Do you know what it reminds me of? You can't. You know when somebody says, "What are you doing for your birthday?" or "What are you doing?" Like you go and you've graduated or you've done something, and then somebody says, "Oh, when should we celebrate that?" You can't. There's only one moment. You can never capture it again, ever again. it's that moment. So a week later, you go, oh, we're celebrating that. Too late. It's done. It's that moment. And I remember going rollerblading. And if you ever felt so frigging happy about something, I'm going around, I'm speaking to everybody. I'm around this park going, hello, how are you? It's a great day. This is the best thing ever. And I just could. And what I did, and listen, this is a little, all I would say is a little word. What anybody getting involved in any of this, and they happen to have somebody as beautiful as Wanda Whiteley that sees something in you, and we remained friends for years. She's a beautiful woman from HarperCollins, and if you ever see that, remember one thing: you may want to still have someone batting for you. I was so grateful for HarperCollins. I forgot they're a business. I was so grateful. So what they did is they gave me a contract. They gave me 3 condoms. They bent me over and they screwed me. But I didn't really, but I didn't realize to what extent, because I would have signed anything.
Right.
And I didn't care. And even to this day, I still don't care. I'm so utterly grateful to Wanda Whiteley, essentially. It was her. It was, she convinced HarperCollins to do it. And then we ended up doing many books. I think we ended up doing 10 books together. We did £7, 7 days. £7, 7 days is the only juice book to ever hit #1 on Amazon. It knocked the Da Vinci Code off #1.
It's incredible. So pause, because, remember that my listeners may not know, a lot of them may not know what you've done since.
Sorry, yeah.
Right? So let's fast forward, and then we'll go back, because I want to fast forward to.
We need a second episode.
I know. We need like 3 or 4 hours, but I want to fast forward because I was just at Juicy Oasis, which is outside of Portugal for people who are listening, in a town which I can't pronounce. What's the name of the town?
It's not really in a town. It's in a town called Freire des Esseres, but not really. It's on the river Freire des Esseres. It's on the river des Esseres, and I can't really pronounce it that well either. But it's in the middle. If you've got a map of Portugal, you went dead center. That's exactly where it is.
Okay, well, that's good to know, because I've never looked at that and realized that it was dead center. But what I can say about Juicy, because I was just there, is that, well, I don't know if you know this, Jason, in the last year and a half, I've done 6 weeks at Juicy Oasis. Yeah. You can say I'm one of your biggest fans. But the beautiful thing that I want to share here, and then we're going to go back and have you fill in some of the story that brought us here together having this conversation right now, is that I told you, Sophie, I called you last minute. I was scheduled for a week. I told you, Sophie, my daughter, somebody had broken her heart. And this was just 2-3 days before I was meant to go for my week at Juicy. And I contacted you and I told you, Jason, I can't imagine leaving Sophia here on her own for a week. I mean, really, she couldn't get out of bed. And I thought, there's no way, I can't go to Juicy Oasis for a week and leave her in this state. And you were amazing, like in so many other occasions. Bring her along, no problem, And I haven't had a chance to tell you more about this, but it was a completely transformative week for Sophia. Let me see if I can hold it together and not become emotional here. When we got there, the first day she said, Mom, I want to go home. I want to go back to Valencia. I can't do this. But it was because she was so emotionally distraught. She said, I can't imagine, when you're emotionally distraught, what you want to do is eat. She's like, and smoke, she's a smoker. And she was like, I can't imagine being here for a week in the emotional state I'm in. I don't think I can do it. And I said, well, you're not going home, so, and you don't have any money. So you're going to be here. And so, that sounds cruel, but that was the reality. I was absolutely not going to let her go home. So the first couple of days she didn't participate in much, but actually maybe the second day she went to yoga. The third day she went to yoga twice. The fourth day, it was like I could see her face changing, her body changing, her attitude. It was like something lifted her up in that space. And it was almost like I could say it was like a spiritual awakening. She got perspective on what happened. I could feel her heart healing. We were having amazing conversations. And in these yoga classes, and it's the new guy I just met for the first time, Christian. He was the first week there. He does a lot of like affirmations and mantras. And I could see them impacting her. And she came out of a week, a different person, Jason. Like that week healed her. And of course, I know what Juicy Oasis can do for me and for other people, but this is a 19-year-old who told me later, if I had left her here in Valencia by herself. She doesn't know what she would have done.
Yeah,
Coming out empowered and confident and feeling great. And it wasn't like she didn't have little dips after that. It was hard,
of course.
but something shifted forever in her, Jason, in a week.
Yeah, well, it can happen rapidly, can't it? I always say if you give yourself, not just give me, but if you give us 72 hours, we can give you your fire back to some extent. And it's not
Yeah.
us, it's nature. We never take credit. The point is if you allow yourself no rubbish coming in, including mentally, for 72 hours, that's normally the detox process. Forget the word detox, withdrawal. That's what it is. You're withdrawing from all that stuff. But whereas you're never going to do that if, of course, the usual way, as Sophie said, is to is to feed to feed the emptiness. There's a big hole that occurred. So the natural tendency is to try and fill it. But the problem is you can't fill it with something that didn't cause it. And so although rationally you know that, you will try and try and try. And so people gain weight. They have loads of cigarettes. I did the same thing many times, and you can't. But there is something, I'm biased, but there is something genuinely magical about Juicy Oasis. And I know I'm biased, but I think, and I'm not that spiritual, if I'm honest. I'm really not. I'm not really a yoga person. I used to like yoga a little bit here and there, and I don't. Mantras are great and everything else, but there's something about that. And I think my mum plays a part, and I'm not into that stuff. But she was there. She stood there with me when it was a derelict building. I never had the money to build it at all. No, people think you do, but I never had the money to build it. And she said she had stage 4 lung cancer. It was too late for her. This, that, and the other, which I refused to believe. And she said, nowhere in Europe is doing anything like you would do. She said, so you owe it to everybody to do it. And I said, well, Mum, I can't afford to buy that. I don't know how to run a hotel. I said, look, life's tough enough as it is. Don't do this to me. She goes, well, look, you've got no choice but to build it. And I said, what do you mean I've got no choice? She goes, because it's my dying wish. I went, you bastard. I said, hell, could you do that? But me and her were best friends. She had a great sense of humor. And she said, you can never sell it. She had certain rules. She said, look, you must do this, first of all. I mean, Tony Robbins years ago said, if you've got a strong enough why, you find out how to do something. But you can't have a strong enough reason to do something than that person saying, that's my dying wish. I mean, I don't think there was enough hours in the day I would have worked to make sure that building would have been, I mean, that's the essence of it. But, me and Katie, we picked everything in there. Like there was no architect, there was no designer, there was no anything else, because for us, it's from the heart. It's like, this is our little thing from like, how are people going to move from the gym to here, right? Can we have it there? And we're building within the structure, and we have the restraints of money and everything else. And we're like, how are we going to build it? This, that, and the other. And my mom said, look, you can't sell it to any of the big chains. She goes, better still, you can't sell it. She goes, why would you want to get out of this business? Because it's not a business. And I love her so much. Anyway, so she goes, it's not a business. Oh, sorry.
It's just such a beautiful story.
Oh, sorry. Jesus Christ.
No.
Anyway, so she said, and she goes, you don't own it. She goes, don't be under any illusions that you ever own anything, which was all, she told me that for years. She goes, it's a 90-year holiday. It's the best piece of advice for all the gurus in the world, well, gurus aren't gurus. Anybody calls themselves a guru is not a frigging guru, right? But anyway, but you go, she said, it's a 90-year holiday. The first 5 years you're dribbling, the last 5 years you're dribbling. She said, she goes, there's 80 years in between. And the key is to have
if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, exactly. Have a blast, right? Just have a blast. She goes, but be good, all the other stuff. But don't think you own anything. She goes, an illusion. She goes, oh, my house is bigger than yours. She goes, it's all nonsense. She said, so don't think you own the retreat. It's owned by the people that walk through the door every single week. And it's true. We have a meeting every Saturday and we say, listen, although we're running week on week on week on week, it's too easy to go into this, for any industry, to go into this headspace of, it's just another week. Anybody says that, we go mad. It's like, no, it's not, because some people have saved up for 6 years to come. We don't know their stories. Some people are in a little eco pod. Some people are leaving children for the first time. Some people have parents that have just died. We don't know their story. We will never probably know their stories. We have no concept of their stories. Our only role here is to make sure that we are there for them, that we're not, it's not about therapy. We don't do any therapy. You know that. We don't consciously, we always call let the place do the work. Let the space do the work. That's all it is. Because otherwise, there's no, we don't want to sit around and go, how did that make you feel? There's enough of that going on. And I'm not, in its own right, it can be okay. But I think too much of it can also be self-debilitating. So we just have this, and that's why I think Juicy Oasis just is this special place. It's
Oh,
just,
it's so
although you live on juice for a week,
it's so special.
it's not about the juice, is it?
Yeah, well, so that's what I was going to speak to. What you just said is it's like there's a belief in the resourcefulness of human beings, and you put them together in a healthy environment, and magic happens.
Correct.
Because I have done 6 weeks in the last year and a half. Every week has been a different group of people. Every group is different personalities, and
Yeah.
But what is universal is there's always special bonds that are created. There are deep therapeutical conversations that happen, even though you don't facilitate them.
Correct.
There
Correct.
are tragic stories in every group, Jason, because I do talk. I mean, I'm a talker and a listener. I don't get everybody's story, but I would say every time I've gotten half the people's stories. And you're right. Some people, someone has just died. Someone is, getting away from abuse. Someone's an alcoholic. There's all sorts of stories. And what's beautiful is that it becomes this kind of week long, or in some cases, I was there for 2 weeks. Sometimes I've met people there who sign on for a month, but it's like there's a kind of sister brotherhood feel of we're in this together. And
There was a kid there who was, I call him a kid now, but I think he's 19, and he was there in January. And it's funny, you don't realize, like you said, you don't realize the impact of words or anything else, because you naturally do. Anybody who does this, it comes from a place, they're not doing it, you're trying to make a difference first, then make money second. And if you do it the other way around, you're screwed. It's the wrong way around. And this guy I was just chatting to, his father was there and everything else, but his son was really big and beautiful boy, though, just a great kid. So because he was so great, I just felt the need to have a chat with him. I just thought, and I started talking to him about his mates and influences and this, just a little kid, a couple of days. No idea. His mom came 2 weeks ago and said, do you know what happened to my son? And I went, no, I have no idea. Now, he left in January. Now, we're recording this just the 1st of June is when we're recording this, but this was beginning of May. He's lost 100 pounds. 100 pounds. Like his father's just like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to this kid. But he's all of a sudden, but like you said, it's the beauty, and it's not, he just understood addiction was, going through a little addiction talk and this, that, and the other, but just without being heavy. But he was willing to listen, and somebody's willing to listen, you're willing to give them a little bit of this. But even then, you can lead a horse to water and everything else. But
right, exactly. It is about timing, right? And
timing.
Yeah.
It's timing. That's what it is. It's like when somebody says, the biggest bugbear is this: if anybody's listening out here who happens to be a coach or a therapist or anything else, and they have any client ever say to them this, or any guest or anything else say to them, oh, well, I did that, I did what you said, but it didn't work. Feedback with this, because I've written it in most of my books, right, is that it does work. You didn't do it, right? It worked. You didn't do it, right? So that's the difference, is that you can't, it is you, I say. When they say it doesn't work, it is you. So you didn't work. That's it. So you can blame everybody else as much as you want for the rest of your entire life, but you got to take some personal responsibility. Because when they start fighting against me, oh, you don't know what it's like. I go, really? Oh, dude. I go, you can say that to most people, right? You can say those to people that's inherited tons of money, that's gone on an NLP course with Bandler and McKenna. But you can't say that to me, right? Because I'll come back to you and say that, if you want to go down that spiral Monty Python story, well, you think I had it bad. I had to walk to school. Well, you had to walk to school. You were lucky. You had legs, and you go down, and it's a great sketch. But it's crazy. I think everybody's got opportunities. I think I tell you what, I feel sorry for people genuinely who's got all the money in the world, that's inherited it for whatever reason. And I genuinely mean this, but don't have that mentor, or love. And you can find them, they're out there. It doesn't matter if they're not your mother, your father, your guardian, your anything else. There's tons of them around. You haven't got to go, oh, well, that's my only place to look. There's tons, they're out there. And you can
find. That's such a good point, because in your story, your mother plays the absolute key role. The fact that she loved you so much, that she was such an important person for you, that made all the difference in the world. Had you not had her, who knows where you would be today?
Well, I know, because all my friends. So if I look at all the people that I grew up with, apart from some of I used to be a break dancer as well, but I used to go down Covent Garden and busk because I didn't go to school to earn money. Anyway, long involved story. But of all the people that I grew up with, I look back now, Georgie Gorman, one of my best friends, he's dead. Phil, dead. Michael, I don't know what's happened to him. Keith dead, you know, and you look and you go, yeah, I kind of guess. Or if they're not actually dead, then they're pretty much going through the motions until they actually pass away.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those, and you just think, yeah, but that's, and the difference between, and that is the only difference between me and all of them. The only difference, same houses, same this, same council flat, is my mum.
Yeah.
So never underestimate a mentor, and don't bitch to think, oh well, my mum's like your mum, weren't you lucky? Yeah, I was listen, if my mother wasn't my mother, even to have known this extraordinary woman for 40 years, I was one of the most blessed humans on earth. But the fact she was my mum as well is insane. So it's hard for me to even go, oh, it's out of, you know, damn, my life's terrible because she died. It's like, God, I was privileged to have her, but it's hard. But if you don't have that person in your life, there's 7 billion people on earth. You tell me you can't find another mentor? They're around. They're around. They're in different guises, and they're around, and they'll attach onto you because there's a lot of love in the world, a lot of love.
Yeah.
And if you go out there and they're what people want to help. Fundamentally, good people want to help people.
No, I agree.
That's what they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that I think I asked you this one time before. I mean, because I'm so moved by your story and by your mother. And I just wonder, you know, if she were here right now, you know, what would she say? Is like, what would she think about? You've gone so much further beyond what she asked you to do.
She would just, the only words that would come out, because it came out to, a lot, was, I'm just, yeah, it's the words that everybody really wants to hear. It's the reason why we do anything, isn't it? Which is why when my mother passed away and I didn't have any unconditional love left, because there isn't. People say, oh, you get unconditional love from other people. No, you don't. There's always conditions. Like even the person that you like, even with Kate, my Kate. Now, those won't like my jokes, but it's a joke beforehand, right? But people say, oh, you know, Kate said to me after, she goes, but I give you unconditional love. I said, you don't. So there are several conditions. One, don't sleep with my sister. Two, you know, but what I'm saying is there's quite a lot of conditions attached. Whereas with a, you know, with a mother, there are no conditions.
It's true.
So the point is that very few people say it from the heart, no matter what you do. But she would always say, whatever it is. And right now, like you said, what would she say? I'm half proud of you. She goes, an half. She would say, an half. I'm half proud of you. And that's all that's why we do it. We just want somebody to go, yeah, well done. That's all we want. I think that's all. You ask any guy, I don't know if it's the same for women, maybe it is. But I know for guys, you ask any guy, I know quite a few billionaires now, which I don't know how that happened, but anyway, I do. But again, it's irrelevant because they know that money means, it's just all of a sudden they get, and they've reached certain areas of their life, and sometimes they're in I know one in particular who's in a marriage for 25 years and this, that, and the other, and he's always down. He's always down a lot. And I go, you all right? And he goes, no. And then I had a proper chat with him, and I said, I haven't known you long. I said, but because he sold a company. I'll give you an example. He sold a company for, I don't know, whatever it was. I think it was 27 million, right? He's got several, but he sold one for 27 million. Now, he's blessed enough. He's made himself blessed enough, but he's blessed enough that financially doesn't make an ounce of difference to him, right? He just wants to win, right? That's all it is, right? But also he built that company up and he did it. And it's a monumental achievement. I don't care how much money you've got. It's an incredible thing to do as a human. But he gets home, he tells his wife, and she goes, oh, right, anyway, listen, da-da-da-da-da, and starts, because she's so used to it. She's so used to his amazingness. Right. And that's why a lot of relationships break up as well, by the way. It's because it's too many bananas, I call it. It's too many bananas. And that's something I put in the book, Create Magic, is too many bananas. You know, and they did an experiment, you know, with monkeys, and the monkeys had no bananas. And then they fed that, you might know the story, but for those that don't, but fed, and there's a whole load of bananas. So they gave him one banana. The monkey's frigging over the moon because he had one banana. Monkey couldn't be more grateful, hugging the person, give him one banana every day. Then there was a surplus of bananas that came in, and they went, do you know what, we can afford for the next month to give them 2 bananas every day. This is fantastic. So they give the monkeys 2 bananas every day. Then, of course, that ends. Of course, they have to go back to 1 banana. So now, instead of being really grateful for 1 banana, they're pissed off they haven't got 2. Yeah. and there's too many bananas. It happens in business when if you bonus your employees, if you go too often, it sounds crazy. Too many bananas. All of a sudden, you're a great boss for doing it, and now you're an arsehole if you don't. You're like, too many bananas. That's what happens. So all of these, I don't know, there's tons of lessons in life, and I've got so many to learn like this. So I am far. Of course, I mean, I've got so many things that I still want to do, see this, and we've all got challenges. And I would say to people, look, if people think that Tony Robbins doesn't have bad days, that he doesn't put his head under a duvet some days and doesn't want to get up, or doesn't think again. Think again. I'm telling you, because that's the thing sometimes with these men. You think, oh, unless I'm like that all the time, that means I'm doing something wrong, so I might as well not get started. It can be detrimental unless you're real, which is my latest documentary, SuperJuiceMe 1.5, was to show, look, I'm just letting you know I struggle too. It was just to say, look, I want to keep this real as I can, because otherwise you might think, look, it's impossible. He's obviously got a different psyche or something.
Yeah. He's made of something special, right? Something different.
Of course, we're not. None of us are made of
No, we're not.
No, none of us
So
are.
just like, I want to jump to, because I was just recently there, and one of the things that I love about Juicy Oasis is also, I mean, if we just talk about well-being, it's just, you've thought of everything. And I just have to speak to the beauty of the place. When I got there, and also the importance of gratitude, because even though I've been there lots of times, I think every time I go, I feel even more grateful to be there.
That's wonderful.
And what you said earlier about having people treat it like their home, that is how it feels. I walked in those doors and I felt like I feel home here,
Well, I have a saying you're at Joey's. If you're friends,
Yeah.
you know what that means. So whenever I do an opening talk, I go, you're at Joey's. And I say, look, the sauna, what time does it close? It doesn't, because you're at Joey's, right? The gym, what time does it close? You're at Joey's. And I say, look, if you get up at 3 a.m. and the sheet is over the hot tub outside, and you think, oh no, am I allowed to go in it? Of course, you're at Joey's. Take it off, it's your hot tub. And that's the point. The reason why it feels like home is because it should do.
Yeah.
Hate these rules in hotels. Oh, the swimming pool closed at 8 o'clock. The reason why I'm doing an American accent is only because when I went transatlantic, it was always the way. I was on jet lag and I'd go there and they'd go, oh, the spa closed at 6 o'clock. And seriously, why? Why did it though? Do you not want to earn more money? You crazy person. Yeah, anyway, so it's a bit crazy. But yeah, there is, I know what you mean. But it's not the best. But what's extraordinary that I think about Juicy Oasis is that there are way nicer places, as in aesthetic. You can go to Dubai, you can go to Oman, you can go to the Six Senses, you can go, in terms of, the grandeur of places that you can go to, Seven Pines, I think it's called, whatever.
Yeah.
These are unbelievable places. But the thing that makes Juicy are the people.
Yeah. Well, I would say the people, I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. I mean, the fact that it's somewhat small, that, when it's maxed out, it's 40 some odd people.
Yeah.
You interact with some of the same people over and over again. You get to know people. There's a homey feel to it. You can sit in the winter and play chess in front of the fireplace, and it's lots of factors, and including the staff. So let's talk about that for a moment, because that's, how do you choose and lead your staff? Because the staff is amazing, from the people who clean the rooms to the people who run reception to the people who handle the phones, all of it.
Well, I don't lead the staff. I think this is the thing. I didn't read any books on leadership or anything else. And I think the key is they lead themselves. And as my mom taught me, is that when you go to work, she goes, you go to work for two reasons. You go to work for you, fundamentally. That's what you go to work, so that when you finish work, you get this sense of achievement. So it's for you. Fundamentally, this is for you. You can't cheat it. You can't. I used to be a paint and decorator, and sometimes I did roofing. You don't want to be on a roof and pretending to knock a nail in or whatever the case is, because ultimately that night you're not going to feel satisfied.
Yeah.
And then secondly, it's for if you're in a service industry in particular, you're going in for them. So I was a butcher once, weirdly. I know it's hard to believe now, but anyway, you go in and serve people, and I worked down the market, so you're serving people. And it was, when I went down the market, it was all about, how do I entertain these people for the day? Like they're having a normal day. It's pouring down with rain, and can I crack a few jokes, and can I do this? And on the back of it, if we sell something, great, and if we don't, we don't, and we're just having a bit of a giggle. So all of the team, no matter who they are, it's just like first of all, are we treating you fairly, whatever you deem to be fairly? Because everybody has a different opinion of that, right? So there you go.
Right.
And a constant reminder, there is no hierarchy. Now, clearly there is, but what I mean is in the sense that I remind them genuinely, if ever they think that anybody giving a talk, like myself, that they think that I'm somehow, in any way, shape or form, more important to the running of that place than somebody making the bed and cleaning the room. I argue to them, you're way more important, because I cannot be there 1 week and this whole place will still run. You're not there for a week, we are screwed. right? So that's how important your role is. So can you take pride? And they take utter pride in
They,
it.
they do. They do. It's
Because
amazing.
they want to work for themselves. They say, look, you don't work for me. You don't work for Kate. The minute you think you work for me, we're in trouble. I said, we're all in trouble. You don't work for me. You work for you and the people walking through the door. And as long as you know you work for those two elements, and you work for your family, but ultimately that's you and this, that, and the other. But the pride and everything else and the people that walk through the door. And the best, I think, without doubt, the best compliment ever received at Juicy Oasis, I'm just thinking about this now, but it was a magic moment, was we had our ex-manager, which was our first ever guy, that turns out he wasn't a magic maker. There's a fine line between creating magic and creating tragic. And he was a tragic maker, not a magic maker. Now, we only try and have magic makers because we have a magic making philosophy. You say, what's our philosophy? Is magic making. How can we create magic for? That's it. If that's your number one question, then your brain finds an answer. What can we do to create more magic? We never get it right. You never get it 100% right, whatever that is. But you're striving to be the best magic makers you can. And there's always going to be mistakes, obviously. But anyway, this guy that was managing he didn't last long. But anyway, when we first opened, and we didn't know what we were doing, right? We knew how to run a retreat. We've been doing it for 10 years before that, but we hadn't owned a place. And he was the hotel manager, and we thought, oh. Anyway, so we got to the end of the week, and he's only worked in Marriott, this, that, and the other. And at the end of the week, there was people, they were leaving, they were hugging, they were crying, they were, I'm missing you already. Strangers. These are all, they're not 9 perfect strangers. In case anybody's listening and thinking we've got one of those retreats, like Nicole Kidman, right? I'm just letting you know that we don't put any magic mushrooms. When I say it's a magic making philosophy, it's not magic mushroom making philosophy, just to be clear. Anyway, so, and they're crying and all this, and they're hugging and all this, and they're already exchanging numbers, and they're this, so I think we're going to be friends for life. And he said something that just, I thought my mom would love this. And he just said, you don't get this at the Marriott, do you? And that was it. I just thought, no, you don't. No, you don't. And you never will. No. And you never will. One's a business, one is a soul, I would say.
That's a great way to describe it.
And do you know what I was offered? Genuinely offered. It was the ex-vice president of Walt Disney who happened to come. He owned a place down in the Algarve, 17 million euros. He had something wrong with his health. I didn't know who he was. He came for 2 weeks. At the end of 2 weeks, he said, this has changed my entire life. Now, it's interesting to observe when multi-millionaires say something changed their life, because because without your health, you've got nothing. And people realize that the older they get. So what he means, it's changed my life. In fact, I've got my mojo back. I've got my thinking back. So at the end of that, he went, I want to invest in this, because he was just so enthralled with it.
Yeah.
He said, in America, and he genuinely said, I want to open 50 of these. So in every state in the next 5 years. And he offered an eye-watering amount of money, right? And I went back and I was speaking to some people. And moreover, I spoke to, it's weird, but I don't speak to my mum, but I just, what would she think? What would she say? Kind of stuff. And that conversation took about 5 seconds. And I said, thank you very much, but I'm going to decline. And so he said, why? Don't you want to juice the world, which is your statement? And I said, yes, but I don't want to be the McDonald's of detox. And I said, and unfortunately, what would happen? I said, it would end up being a soulless place, and there are millions of those. I said, and it will end up being a machine. I don't want it to be a machine. I said, if I want to impact more people, I'll make another documentary. Millions can watch it. It's fine. And they can do it. And I said, and I can do that. I said, but what do I want anyway? I mean, if you look, you can only drive one car, right? You can only sit in one seat. I don't know what the point of this X amount of money is. I actually don't know what the point is. Yeah. I don't get it. I mean, I've got a little Fiat 500 a bath. I've got this. It's not that I don't. Toys are great. If you want toys, I think it's great. I'm not even picking on people for wanting toys. It's just that I'm just like, well, what is? I don't really. Once you're beyond a certain point, it's like MTV. I remember watching Cribs on MTV, and they had these big houses, big this, and virtually every time, especially guys, especially dudes, basketball players in particular, and they go, "What's your favorite room in the house?" And they'd always take them to some snug. A little snug where they can just draw the curtain, and you're like, that's it. They don't want anything, but you think you want that. And there's a cliche, there's an old saying that most people spend half their life trying to accumulate things, and the second half of their life trying to get rid of the things they accumulated. Because they thought that was where it is. But I said to him, no. I said, and everybody said, did you regret that decision? No. I said, because I don't want to spend the rest of I've got more past than future now. And I kind of had even then, really, in a way, because I was about 45 when he made the offer. But I mean, you know, how many prime time years have you got, you know, when you're 80 odd or whatever the case is. So I said to him, I don't want to spend the next 5. He said, no, honestly, you haven't got to do anything. No, trust me. I know. Yeah. And I said, he said, you just have to visit. I said, let's visit in 50 states. I said, let's get into every airport. I said, how long are the delays at the airport? And then when I'm on the airplane, then when I'm no, my life, no, my life, my time is worth way more than whatever amount of money you could give me or whatever. And plus it would water down what we have. And that's why the building of the second one is that people say, oh, where are you building after Juicy Escape? It's going to be in the Algarve. I said, genuinely nowhere. I said, I can hang my hat on that. And I said,
this is it.
And I said, it's it. I said, because the only thing that frustrated me about Juicy Oasis was because it's not the ultimate playground that I wanted. It's a beautiful space, but I've always wanted a playground, like just a play. And it's going to be called Europe's healthiest playground. And I just think all anybody wants from a day really is to be around like-minded people, so that nobody drinks, right? Nobody drinks, right? So to tell your brain this is okay, that I don't need alcohol, and to dance and to do whatever and to do sports. I've even built a mini Olympics now. I've built a mini running track and a 60 meters and a hurdles, and
that's incredible.
And it's just as I think, wouldn't it be great to have a mini Olympics every week? Just to have a bit of fun. And wouldn't it be great to, and on top of the gym's got a boxing ring in it because it'd be just fun. And then and it's quite big. The spinning studio's got lights and everything else, and the roof was big. And I said, can you reinforce that? And they went, yeah, but for what? So we can have a roller rink Friday night disco. I mean, how much fun would that be? Then the cinema. Oh, don't just have a cinema. Couldn't you have, oh man, couldn't we just do like an old 60s cinema where we could put letters and like 3 showings a day? Have the original looking car from Greece, the 1946 Ford Deluxe convertible. So I bought one, and that's going to sit outside saying Grease Lightning.
Oh my gosh.
Outside the cinema. And then, but nobody thinks of doing things like this. Like, why don't we have a concert, every night for those that want it? So whether it's Robbie Williams at the Royal Albert Hall, one of the best concerts of all time, and everybody goes in and they go in with their phones and lights and stuff, and we all have a sing song. You don't got to get on a plane to go to a concert. You can, and no one's doing it. I'm like, that would be fun. Why don't we just do that? And then everything like slides going into the lake. So like you wake up, just stuff. You just think, how much fun can we have? Military assault course, dancing dome. How can we bring people together? And people say, why are you frustrated that it's not opening? Is it because of the challenge? Because of this? Yeah. No, because I'm losing years. Yeah. I want to play there.
Yeah.
My little son, JJ, it's going to be great for him. We had our first race on there. He thinks he's Dash from The Incredibles. He's only 4, just turned 4. And he goes, I raced Daddy. He's like this. And it's ultimately his, I mean, if he wants it, might not want it. I mean, who knows? But I mean, it's ultimately his if he wants to take the health baton. That's all it is. But if you can show people that you can have a blast while getting healthy, because I think that's the biggest hurdle. And that's the biggest problem that people had for years is, I'm going on a detox. They're already miserable saying the freaking word. Aren't they? They're already, instead of going, hey, guess where I'm going? I'm going on this, I'm going to have tons of exercise. I'm going to feed myself. I'm going to get sharp within 3 days. Imagine that, you're going to wake up on day 4 and I'm going to be sharp in that short space of time. Well, you don't feel doom and gloom. You got to feel like, guess where I'm going?
Yeah. Well, people have no idea. I mean, until you've experienced it, people project suffering into
they do, yeah,
for a week. And most people are happily surprised that it's not like that at all. My favorite moment of the day?
Go on.
No, what is my favorite moment? I know you have to know this. The favorite moment of the day at Juicy.
I thought that would have been different for everyone. So I'm going to say...
No, mine.
Oh, yours?
Yeah, mine.
I don't know what yours is.
Volleyball.
Volleyball, yeah. Well, come on. It depends on who's there. We now start to do it in the summer twice a day.
I know. That was already happening last time I was there.
So the 8 o'clock game. And look, Ultra Ball, game that I invented, that's going to be big in the Algarve, because we've got this soccer. I'm only saying soccer because I know you're American, but football pitch. Why do you call football
soccer?
That's so funny. No, but when the Americans say to me, they go, "Why do you call football football? Have a wild stab in the dark." Because you play it with your feet. Anyway, so moving on.
Jason, I don't know if you know that I am a soccer player. I played from 8 till university.
Well, we got to have a game down there.
I'll be playing in that game.
Listen, do you know what I love? I love turning things around. So there's a thing in the UK called Soccer Aid, right? And I've always wanted to play. It's at Manchester United's ground, Old Trafford. I think they're going to move it to Wembley. It's got big. Robbie Williams started it with a friend of his, Jonathan Wilkes. And I always wanted to get on it. But it's only for celebrities and this, that, and the other. And because despite, and
I think, Jason, you are a celebrity at this
no,
point. I think we can
but
call you a celebrity.
no, but here's the problem. Despite, I mean, there's nearly 7 million books sold. We sold 2 million apps, and I'm not saying this for any other reason than this point, genuinely. And the documentaries have been seen by 6 million people, this, that, and the other. Despite all of that, it doesn't matter. I'm not deemed because I haven't been on Love Island. So the problem is because I'm not an influencer, and because I was too late for Instagram. So they only look at Instagram. They go, oh, "How many followers you got?" As if it matters. Anyway, doesn't matter. There's always another way, right? So I then got in contact with Robbie Williams, right? Because I knew him through Gary, and just emailed him and said, "Look, Robbie, can you?" And he went, "Oh, I said, I'll pay to play, like for UNICEF. I'll even pay to get on the pitch." I said, "That's a win-win." He thought it was a great idea. Put it to UNICEF. They said, "No, we only want A-listers, blah, blah." Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So then I thought, you know what? Juicy Escape, Europe's healthiest playground. Put a football pitch on it and start Footy Aid. Not Soccer Aid, Footy Aid. So already I've got ex-footballers, really big stars coming at the opening. I thought, if you won't let me be on yours, I'll start my own. Sod you. And that's how I feel about. That's how I think that we're gonna also like Richard Branson. I'm not quoting myself in remotely, but I like his Necker Island. I like his Necker Cup. So I'm doing the Escape Cup as well for tennis and stuff.
So cool.
But I just want these people getting involved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm trying to get Djokovic. I'm trying. I mean, he messaged me back on Instagram, and I'm just trying. I couldn't believe he was following me. I'm like, really? Are you kidding me? And then I tried. But always be smart when you're trying to get hold of someone that you don't know. So when he was in quarantine in Australia, I thought, hang on, he's doing nothing else. Now's the time to give him a little message.
He'll pay attention.
That's it. And now, of course, he's now playing tennis again. He ignores me at all, and he's right. So, but I want to get like David Beckham at the opening and stuff. I'm sure David won't come. I mean, David, if you're listening, buddy, come on. I want to get you there. I also want to get a smoothie with him so I can blend it like Beckham. Thank you.
So listen, to wrap it up, because I told you I'd only take an hour.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You're gonna have to edit this down massively.
No, I don't want to edit any of it actually, but I have like 1,000 questions I didn't ask you. So I'm just thinking we'll have to have sometime in the future a part 2, and I'll ask you some of these other questions about well-being and leadership. I loved hearing your story. I thought that was actually much more important in our conversation today.
I tend to go off, don't I? So I apologize.
I know, but I love that because like I said, I learned a bunch of stuff today. So I told you I was going to do a rapid fire piece. Let's do a little rapid fire. And then we'll do like, I know you didn't want to plug anything, but we'll just do like a final kind of summary because we didn't talk about Juicy Mountain. So just like really quick, and also when Juicy Escape will be opening. So this is just going to be, I'm just going to throw things at you and the first thing comes to you. So let's go. If you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
Oh God, a billboard with anything on it, and what would it be and why? It's got to be quick fire. I think Carpe Diem, that's it. Carpe Diem.
Carpe Diem, love it. Last series you binged and loved?
Oh, it's the same series, sadly, on it's Friends.
Friends, oh, I love Friends.
I just constantly binge Friends. I'm sure there are other things that you can watch.
Yeah.
But also I would say Bad Sport as well on Netflix. Brilliant.
I have to tell you that I am with you with Friends. I think we talked about it at one point, but Friends used to be therapy at home. So somebody lost a game, somebody felt sad, somebody was scared. Friends therapy.
It's Friends. There are 3 stories in each episode, and each one's layered. They won't do it again. It's genius.
I just love it. I love it. I'm with you. Okay, so if you could turn back time and talk to that younger self that you were describing today, what would you tell him?
I'd say, as you are, just trust. It's all good.
If your life were a book, what would be the title of the chapter you're living right now?
Okay. Well, I suppose the obvious title for mine is Turn Your Lemons into Lemonade, because I started juice bars and we literally turn lemons into lemonade, not just the life. So, I mean, as a cliche as that saying is, I think that's
good. That's good.
Yeah.
What is the best tip you have right now for making the world a better place?
It's Caroline Flack, it's her quote, not mine. And she was a friend of mine. She was on Love Island. She was very well known in the UK. And she sadly committed suicide 2 years ago. And it was on February the 15th. I remember it well. And her thing was always on social media. In a world where you can be anything, be kind. And that's it.
In a world where you can be anything, be kind. Best live concert.
Oh, best live concert has got to be, it's got to be Robbie Williams in Vegas. I saw him at the Wynn. There's no question. Nothing comes close. He was brilliant.
Okay, best compliment you've ever received.
I, I think it goes back to that. I'm proud of you. I think that's the
I'm
best
proud of
compliment.
you, your
Still a
mom. Yeah.
compliment. Yeah.
Best meal.
Oh, it's a wrap. I just love wholemeal wrap, avocado in there, feta cheese, sun blush tomato, cracked black pepper, lemon juice, bit of baby leaf spinach going on there, and drizzle with pesto. Boom, boom, cut,
Yeah,
boom,
so
done.
good. So good. You're making me hungry. I have not had lunch yet. How would JJ describe you?
You my daddy? No, he was. How would JJ describe me? I don't know how he would at this moment in time. I'm hoping I think he described me as somebody who's good to hang out with. I hope.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen you play with him, so yeah.
Oh yeah, you saw it on the beach.
I did. Hey,
Yeah.
on the beach that day, I was like, oh my God, he is gonna wear his dad out. Like,
Yes.
I'm like, who's more of an energizer buddy between these two?
Oh
I'm
no,
not
he's
sure.
crazy. No, he doesn't stop.
Okay, favorite movie.
Oh, that's really hard. That's because there's different genres. I mean, that's very hard. So, I mean, let's be fair. Animation, of course, Zootropolis, don't be silly, because it's obviously Jason Bateman, who's the fox, has to be. And then the favorite thriller of all time, I think The Gift. I think The Gift was genius ending. I really like The Gift. But then in terms of classics, you've got to just have Grease and Dirty Dancing, as cliched as they are, but they're fantastic.
They are really good. You know what's funny is I actually was in New York and went to a wedding where the producers of Dirty Dancing were. This was when I was 18, and I remember I was very young, and I remember they thought that it was too sappy and cheesy, and like they never imagined what would happen with that film. They had no idea what they had.
I read Patrick Swayze's book, which is incredible. While he had cancer, he was writing it. And he said the line that he was going to end the contract with was "Don't put baby in the corner." And he says in his thing that he was going to walk out. He said nobody ever would say that. Nobody in a billion years would say that. It's too cheesy. I'm not saying it. They got him to say it. The rest is history.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show you that you never know. It's like a window of time, and things come together, and it was just what people needed at that moment in history.
A watermelon. Who knew that would become famous?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Crazy. Okay. What is on your nightstand?
On my nightstand?
Yeah.
Nothing on my nightstand. It's terrible, isn't
it? Nothing.
Nothing. I know. I've got nothing. Nothing's on my nightstand.
Not even a lamp.
No, it's not a lamp. No, okay. Actually not a lamp on my night because I don't read at night. So.
Okay. If you could be remembered only for one thing, what would you want that to be?
Oh, it's cliche, isn't it? He made a bit of a difference.
He made a big difference. Come on, Jason. He made a big difference.
I wanted to be known he made a bit of, or to be my favorite film. Sorry, Christmas film. Of course, It's a Wonderful Life. How have I bypassed that? But of course, the message in that is how I want to be. You know, if you hadn't been that wonderful thing at the end, just remember if you hadn't been born. You know, like if you hadn't been born, what wouldn't have happened? It's that kind of things. Like if that's kind of how I want to be remembered. Yeah, it's just and I just want to be remembered that. Yeah, he was a laugh. I know it sounds crazy.
Oh yes, you'd say he impacted millions of lives, and he was funny. I
want to impact lives through laughter. That's.
I always say, like, if you weren't the juice master, you would be a stand-up comic. I think. I still for sure. Okay, your biggest pet peeve.
Oh, awareness. People not having awareness. Oh, I hate it. You're at a cinema and there's tons of empty seats and somebody sits 2 away from you. You're on a beach, there's nobody there, and they come really close to you. It's awareness. Somebody speaking loudly on their phone. Somebody's just like, look around, will you, for feck's sake? Or people eating with their mouth full. Oh, I can't be doing that.
Oh yeah, I gotta be careful next time we.
When they go like that. JJ used to do it. He doesn't do it now. I go, dude, me and you will never get along.
Okay, here's the last one. A snapshot of an ordinary moment that brings you joy.
Oh, now it's changed, isn't it? It's ordinary moment of joy. It's just seeing the little fella. When you come in, he's so pleased to see. I mean, that's the point. I mean, I've never had anybody so pleased to see me. So he's just really pleased to see me. I mean, like, yeah, that's the snapshot of a good day. And also, I just love jumping in the. I mean, to me, it's just walking on the sand, jumping in the sea. I'm blessed. I'm looking at the sea now. I'm blessed. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So yeah, these are snapshots, but it's hard because there's so many things that have to kind of occur in a day to be a successful day, I think. Because success is only a day. It's only a feeling. Right. And so it's just like you can't say what you've got in a day. It's a feeling. It's a night where you go, oh, that's a good day. And you just feel a bit exhausted, you feel a bit this, you feel like you've made a difference in some way, you might have had some fun, you might have played, and you know, it doesn't matter how much money you got, you know when you haven't had a successful day, because you maybe sat down, you may have watched a bit too much TV than you thought you were going to watch, you may have been slightly more unproductive than you told people you've been that day, you might have eaten a bit more than you wanted, and you know, and you feel a bit crappy, and you think, that means you're not successful that day. That's all it is. It's a day thing. It's a day thing. So I would say whatever makes you feel successful in the day is the things, I would say.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This day with you having this podcast has made this day feel successful for me.
I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed it. I didn't know what this, as you know, I didn't know what this was. Didn't look at previous questions. Didn't look at the questions you sent, and I'm terrible. And I didn't look at the quick fire round, which was obvious by my answers.
We didn't answer most of the questions, but I loved where the conversation.
Should we do part two? Should we do part two at some point?
We'll do part two. And I just want to speak to something that, hearing you talk about JJ and how he lights up when you walk into the room, I couldn't help but think of the legacy of your mom. She loved you unconditionally, and now you have a little treasure at home to pass on the love.
I didn't have a dad, and do you know what? I just think, I met him when I was 17. I put an advert in the local paper looking for him. Don't ask, but anyway, I ended up finding him.
No, anyway, we'll save that for chapter 2.
Chapter 2. But I don't get how having got JJ, I genuinely don't understand how any human could leave their offspring ever. I don't understand. I'm sure there's an understanding somewhere. I don't have the capacity to understand it. Anyway, that's for podcast 2.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very lucky to have you, and the world is very lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have you. I can't wait for Juicy Escape. Maybe what we can do is have chapter 2 when Juicy Escape's about to open.
Why don't we record it at Juicy Escape?
Oh, yes. Awesome. Yes. And that means that I will be there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much.